Bob, how have your motivations for practice changed over time?
Um, I'd say substantially in regards to three distinct phases. When I first got involved with this, it was about getting control of the Kundalini process because I went through that when I was quite young. That was very uncomfortable. Then that morphed into getting the spirit world to leave me the hell alone. Um, that was like phase two. And then phase three basically centered on Bardon's mandala from the cover of the third book. Even though when I started that process 5 years ago, we didn't really know what we were doing. It was just as we would consecutively finish the letters that led into the planets, and then that led into the outer planets, and then that led into the zodiac, and then finally into the Sephiro. It was like opening a series of locks. And it wasn't until I'd say probably halfway through the zodiac that we kind of began to figure out, all right, where is this going? Whereas previously it had simply been a process of exploration, if that makes any sense. And that's about as philosophical as I like to get with any of this. By the way, as many people know, I view the process as being exceedingly mechanical. It's very much engineering, and you do A and you get B. Depending upon your physiology, practice, and lifestyle habits, it might take a little longer. Some of us can deadlift 250 kilos with a minimum of training, and some of the rest of us, that might take 5 or 6 years. Because of how we're built and lifestyle and all that other kind of stuff. But ultimately, the techniques you use to get there are exactly the same. It just might be a little easier for one guy or gal than another. So that's pretty much it. Oh, and of course, along the way, creating a way of doing this that doesn't take 30 years the way it did for me, to where a person who's willing to put the work in, as James said, can do this in 3 or 4, to be completely honest with you. And that's ultimately probably going to be the legacy more than anything else, is just taking really bad pedagogy, fixing that so that it's practical for someone to do this and still have something left over for the rest of their life. Versus spending decades just trying to figure out what's going on in order to do it at all. I've used an example before, and this will be the last thing I'll say about this, but the major problem the esoteric community has is we're continually reinventing algebra every generation. And because we're not willing to share, and we're not willing to talk to each other, and we're not willing to write things down bereft of philosophy, focusing on instead how to do it, we reinvent algebra every generation, but we never get to calculus. I'm trying to at least get the algebra into a forum where you can learn it relatively quickly in a couple of years. So maybe somebody does eventually get to calculus. But that's my main long-term goal at this point.